Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable special Alan Bishop Day episode. Looks like Alan's trying to hop on here now. So we'll see when he arrives. But before he does, wanted to, well, and now he's gone. So we'll wait for him to come back whenever he does. But Mike is here with me. Welcome, Mike. This is probably your 10th appearance on Bourbon Turntable, if not more. Well, there was a while there where you were on every week.
That's yeah, a brief while.
Yes.
Now I'm more like the Joan Rivers stand-in for the.
But welcome. Glad that you're here, and we'll go ahead and get started with the preliminaries and such. So first of which is. Hey, there he is. Hey, man.
What's up?
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Happy day.
Sure.
All right. Hey, well, we're rolling here live, so we'll get circle back with all sorts of other things here in just a second. But let's talk about Bar Cart Co-op first. And Alan, you've got three of these shows, so you want to tell folks about the three that you do.
Yeah, maybe if I don't lose my voice, we'll see. So first and foremost is Distillers Talk with co-host Christy Atkinson, and we talk to distillers of all shapes and strides on that show. Craft distillers, home distillers, moonshiners, big time distillers, big name distillers. We've been on a bit of a hiatus lately, although we're about to get right back on that horse starting this week. And starting to book some new people coming in for the wintertime season. And I also have the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute on YouTube, which is basically me answering questions from distillers and fans of distillation about the art and craft of distillation and science thereof as well. And so that's always a really good time. We're always looking for good questions to answer on that show. And if I don't know the answer to it, I will find someone who does. Or I've forgotten. I've got too many of these damn things. If you have ghosts, you have everything, which is my paranormal 14 and high strangeness show. We are in the middle of what we call spooky season, which we do every October, which is really just my excuse to read fairy tales, truthfully. So if I could find a way to make that just a show, just me narrating creepy ass fairy tales, I'd be doing that for a living, probably.
You never know. There's a market for most everything.
Right.
And Mike, My Whiskey Den, tell us about that.
So My Whiskey Den, where we focus on primarily on American craft whiskey and the whiskeys that we have discovered through our journey down that very, very narrow and also Finger Lake spider hole and spirit fingers. And so we nothing against and a lot of fingering. There's nothing against any of the big distillers, big distilleries, but American craft whiskey has a harder time getting on shelves, has a harder time getting to the consumer, and quite honestly, there's just a lot of really good American craft whiskey that people don't know about. So we try to get the word out as many distillers, distilleries, and the spirits that they make.
Yeah. Also. Whiskey in My Wedding Ring. David Levine has a podcast where he will interview distillers, and he has a blog where he does reviews, and he's a pro. We found out that he's a little raunchier than what we were first suspected after he's been in some chat rooms with us and on some of our shows, but still a real pro.
Shout out to him too. He's doing a great job with the show. He's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah. So good stuff. Hey, and then Bourbon Turntable. Hey, how you doing? This is we're on YouTube. So if you're watching this show live right now on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. We'd appreciate that. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platform, as long as it's Apple, Spotify, or Google. So, Alan, you mentioned One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. You also got a book. Is that book still out there? Still available?
Yeah, man. I got like two books. I got that one and the second one. Those are both at the alchemistcabinet.com. And then I'm actually finishing up right now the 2025 Practical Distillers Almanac, which I hope to have available at least by December. And so this year, like last year, I didn't get it out until like March because it came to me late as an idea. So this year it's actually done. You may not have a physical copy in your hands by January, but if you order it when we get ready to put that up, there will be a digital copy. So you'll have it from the beginning of the year going forward, which is awesome. So, and I'm really, really enjoying that. And I actually got offered a contract potentially to do that through an actual publisher. So we'll see how that plays out. Right. I'm not willing to come off any of the rights to it. I can tell you that right now. Yeah. So, but we'll see how it plays. We'll see how it goes.
No, that I remember you had posted about that, and I thought that was very cool, and excited to hear more about it.
We actually it did really well. I was very surprised that it did what it did. It sold more copies than I thought that it would, for sure.
Yeah, it's a very cool idea. I thought it was.
Yeah, the world needs more almanacs, damn it. Everybody used to have an almanac. Every profession had it. I mean, I don't know when the last time you boys saw a gynecological almanac was, but it's been a long time.
Don't know that I've had one of those before, but
me neither. But
apparently I'm missing out.
I mean, you would presume there's diagrams and stuff.
Maybe I didn't need it.
Touche, sir.
Man, okay.
How to tell the weather by let it go.
Yeah,
let it
go.
Yeah.
So,
yep, there's the awkward silence. That was a line right there. Found the line that quick. Listen, yeah. I'm not even drinking now, and I've had my chaos under control for a few months. It's amazing what not working for foolish people for a few months will do to a person.
Before we get headlong into Alan Bishop Day, there are a couple other things that happen on October 20th, in addition to Alan Bishop Day. One, 1977, the Leonard Skinner plane crash occurred on October 20th. So that's something to remember. And Tom Petty's birthday, October 20th, 1950. So if you got something in your glass, cheers to Leonard and the boys up in the great beyond, and Tom Petty, who's there with him. Cheers.
Great wide open.
Hadn't had that in a while. That's delicious. So, Alan, when this whole Alan Bishop Day thing started, this was the logo that I don't remember if Mike made that or if you made that or how that came about, but that kind of went viral.
Yeah, sure. I don't remember either, Kevin.
There was a virus involved.
Yeah. So it started 4 years ago, October 20th, 2020. So, through Steve Akeley on the Bourbon Daily or something had released a show and called it Alan Bishop Day, and you just kind of took it and ran with it, and I think everybody else kind of did too.
Yeah, I ran with it for the first 3 years, and then this year, if you guys didn't notice, I backed way off because I wanted to. There's an experiment happening here. I wanted to see if it would just disappear, and by God, it almost did. But like 3 or 4 people still played into it. So now next year, I'll be back on the horse. And as I had originally intended this year, Jolie will no longer be the victim. The perpetrator of this crime on humanity will become the victim, will become the butt of the joke as of next year. Because now that I know that it can survive on its own without me just ramping up chaos of my own accord, I feel like I have to, right? I mean, you bought me a new pair of shoes. I might as well wear them and run in them.
Yeah. And I think that it's kind of taken a life of its own. We've celebrated it together often. We had Alan Bishop Day. I think that was in 2021. And then this is probably the best known.
Yes. That was a good night.
Why is Henry Rollins? What the fuck? I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just curious why I don't remember seeing that before. Like,
he was on there because he as a person embodied what Malort and McRibs will do to you.
Fair enough.
And I like Henry Rollins.
I do too. Too. That's the problem. If we can get Henry Rollins to embrace this thing, that'd be great. But I don't think he drinks, so he may not.
No, but he's got an intensity that's.
He did hook up with Susie Sue, and that takes more of a man than I am.
Oh, gee whiz. Thoughts and prayers.
And hair trimmers. Hair trimmers too.
Hair trimmers, yeah. And then I think this might have been last year.
Jesus Christ.
So the nonsense just kind of followed you, Alan. I don't know what that says about you, but
Yep.
mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. And so Jolie was invited to be on with us.
And then she made a big deal about how she doesn't celebrate Alan Bishop Day. And who was the first person who said anything today on social media? She did.
She did.
Yes. She's like Lydia from Beetlejuice. She can't help herself. She's
like someone who complains about Columbus Day, but then loves having that day off.
That's right. That's right. I also ate a rabbit in honor of Jolie today because I know that makes her cry a little bit every time I do it. So,
yeah, I think she kind of uses it for attention, you know.
Yeah,
plays the victim. Yeah,
she likes it. I mean, it's clear. It's very apparent that in some weird way, I you know, outside of her husband and son, I complete her. I mean, it just is what it is. You know, I used to feel sorry for her, but now it's just punishment.
I think there should be some sort of celebration though at Patoka, because you got this body of water, and you could do like put some things in a boat and shoot a flaming arrow at it as a Viking funeral.
Mm-hmm.
So you can lay the previous year to rest with, you know, put a doll of somebody on it or something like that and just burn it all.
Burn an effigy of Alan.
Or, that would be a hate crime to take on Hervé Villachez.
Sausage fingers.
Oh man.
It was one of the airplane movies, and someone said something about I need a little breather, and then there was Hervé Villachez at the camera pans to it. And he's just going.
Oh yes,
it's like having DJ Henderson on a podcast. I'm going to need you to move away from the mic a little bit. Let the mic breathe a little, DJ.
Oh man. So, Alan. I'm already just about to cry. I'm laughing at this. You left the old place, I guess 6 months ago or so. What's the thing that you hope that your legacy will be from that? What do you want to be remembered for from being your time there?
Oh, I'm not entirely sure how to answer that question because I guess I haven't thought of it that way necessarily thus far anyways. It's more of a matter of like, one of these days I'm going to have those names back and those stories back. Like, that's the thing I'm most proud of is those names. Well, the names and the stories,
right? And,
you know, more power to them. I hope they do well at all that stuff that, you know, was fresh 3 months ago that I'm no longer as concerned about now for whatever reason. But,
right.
You know, I'm incredibly proud of what we were able to do. And when I say we, I really, you know, Jolie and Sean White and Stephen McNeely and Josh Lynch and my dad and, you know, everybody else, Justin, et cetera, that worked there, what we were able to do with what we had and what we were given. And the fact that we were really in that, you know, before us and our little breakthrough, there were only a few craft distillers that were getting any real mainstream attention, you know, Balcones, et cetera. But we were able to sort of break through that. In spite of ourselves in many ways, in spite of my big mouth in many ways, truthfully, and get attention, and that was thanks to guys like you and all the other podcasts that got behind us and pushed us out there. And then suddenly the mainstream guys kind of bit into that, whatever. So I'm incredibly proud of that. That USA Today, best brandy distillery thing. It's a goofy popularity contest. Vote as many times as you want to. Bullshit, right? Even though they say you can only vote once, we all know that wasn't entirely true. So, and we weren't the only ones doing it for 4 years in a row, but it is cool to get that kind of attention for that sort of thing. So if anything, if there's any kind of legacy there, what I hope that it is that it shows other home distillers, well, hell, if he can do it, then we could all potentially do this. At the very least, have a legal operating, really cool distillery, being really cutting edge, really pushing things out into the forefront. And even if that does mean that you have just really a cult following as opposed to like mainstream popularity overall, I hope that that's what that legacy is, and that's what it does. I also am incredibly proud of the fact that it put the Black Forest of Southern Indiana back on the map. It made it a thing. I could have said for years, I could have stayed at Copper and Kings for years and talked about, where I'm from and the Black Forest of Southern Indiana and what was done there. And it wouldn't have meant anything because I wasn't operating out of the Black Forest. But to go into the heart of the Black Forest and actually get a distillery up and running from scratch, put out those products and tell those stories and use those names and, bring attention to those people who didn't get the attention they deserved in life. That's pretty damn cool, I think.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Mike, just to walk down that memory lane a little bit from that era of Alan's career, because that's where you and I both met.
Oh God,
Alan
we're totally into this era thing now, aren't we? Like I've been in this long enough now that it's become there's a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about all that.
Don't worry. If you get a big head about it, we'll take you down a notch or two. So
I know you will. I know you will. The problem is I'm now in the position of like starting over, and I'm like, every day I kind of take myself down a little bit. Like, you think you could you make this happen again? Is there can you make this a thing? So,
yeah.
Well, I would say yes.
Yes.
So,
Mike, what stands out to you about that time where, again, that's when we met Alan, that's when we got to know him, and such. So what stands out to you about that time for him, professionally, personally, however you want to answer it?
The biggest thing was one, like the whiskey, but one of the early things, because we were trying the Weeder and Lee Sinclair, and the Weeder was the old Weeder, and okay, let me step back. There was a level of transparency and stuff with a lot of things with it, from getting the media logo and stuff like that from the website, because Jolie was in charge of that, and she said, listen, if you're going to use our logo, you better have it right. So I'm going to make sure that you have it right. So it wasn't this firewalled access to get into that information. It's like, we want to make sure you promote us the right way. Two, we were trying the Weeder, and right off the bat, you guys had said, this is not all ours, number one, and number two, nothing taken away from this, but what we have coming out with our own is definitely going to be better than this. And so you didn't, for lack of a better term, shit on what you had, but you were just saying, I want you guys to know this right off the bat. Also, you talked about your whiskey after we said that we liked it. Like, that's great. You should try what's coming out afterwards. And you kept saying all these releases that were coming out over the next year. That was that part. But on top of that was the fact that from before we even went live, you guys were not taking yourself seriously. One, you two were calling each other names and everything, but you're like, listen, we're not, there was no airs about it. There's no, I'm going to be on my best behavior. I'm going to be the most professional and say, yes, absolutely, I do this. No, there was none of that. You were as real as possible. And it was great. I mean, it took us a minute because all three of us were like, what in the hell is going on right now? But then once we're like, you know what, this is a lot of fun. We're in. So, it was those are the first memories. And then after that, it's downhill or uphill, however you want to look at it.
I remember the first time I met Alan and Jolie. Uh, the first time I met them it'll be 5 years in December, and just were very welcoming, open people, and the fun stuff that was going on. There were inside jokes almost immediately, and that, you know, you kind of knew that you're dealing with the people that you've got. There's something good there. There's something good developing there, and that was definitely the case. And the whiskey that was being produced was almost, you know, a secondary thing in a lot of ways. Well, and really in every way to the friendship that developed from it. And this is, when I say whiskey of the year, this is still it. So. That iconoclast from Lisac was really, really special.
That was a good one. It was a real good one for sure. Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. There's a lot of cool stuff that we did for sure, and a lot of those one-offs like that iconoclast and the Right Way and Fascination Street. That's the palindrome, the smoked apple brandy, that sort of stuff. Like that, if I could get away with doing nothing but that kind of stuff, that's what I would prefer to do, and I get to do a lot more of that kind of stuff now. So, it's about finding the right audience, and I had to build a little bit of my own audience, and then find somewhere where there's a tourist opportunity. So, lots of cool things to come in the future, and plenty more opportunities for me to make fun of Jolie with you guys. So, for sure. I've learned that that maybe not drinking as much, but leaning into the chaos towards others who are drinking might be a little bit more fun for me. So, and not that I don't still drink, because I do. I just not as much. So, it's not necessary anymore, right? So,
so the new place is Old Homestead Distilling Company. There's a nice exterior view. That's the inn, and then to the right would be where the distillery is. So where are you in the process of having the distillery open to the public with product to sell and all that good stuff?
Well, we've been distilling since July, and we've done a little over 70 distillations in that. Well, probably closer to 80 if you count like little mini distillations on the 17-gallon still. But we've done about 70 distillations on our 250-gallon double thumper system, Artemisia. That's all been the sunshine based stuff. So that is sunflower, malted roasted sunflower, and raw sunflower based, but also Elise corn, which is a sister line to Amanda Palmer. There's also been some smoked oat stuff that we've been doing. I'm probably going to play around with some rye malt based on some stuff that Kevin and I did about a year ago or so. So I've got a few thousand gallons worth of sunshines, various different sunshines made. Getting ready to start in on the flavored sunshine stuff, because we're going to have something for everybody. Really, this time I didn't paint myself into a corner. So I've always done that in the past, either via somebody else or via myself. At Copper and Kings, it was an American brandy company, and that's what we did. And then at Spirits of the French Lick, it was I won't add anything post distillation ever. So here, none of those rules apply. The only rule is that with the flavored stuff, it has to be something that you would find if you walked into an apothecary, at the turn of the 1800s to the 1900s. If they had that flavor of candy, we're probably going to make that flavor of shine as well. Plus, also doing a lot of barrel-aged sunshines and 3 different absinthes. So long and short of it is I have product. It's waiting on labels. I think we just got approval on another label. And we also have proofs of those labels coming in. So we should be getting ready to start bottling all that stuff at any point in time. We are the largest all-electric distillery that I know of in the United States. So we also have, in addition to that 250-gallon still, we have a 600-gallon cooker, 4 550-gallon open-top fermenters, a 500-gallon stripping still, and a 250-gallon doubling still. Electricity is hooked up to all those. Plumbing is next. Should happen sometime within the next week, 2 weeks on the plumbing. I'll still be waiting on a glycol system. So this is where it gets fun, right? So I've never had the opportunity I always said I wanted to work in a distillery that was like distilling at home.
Mm-hmm.
This place for the past 6 months has been like distilling at home on a grand scale, literally running water hoses to condensers and all that sort of stuff, which I see as a challenge and I enjoy. So we're going to start doing some fermentations as soon as we get everything finished, hooked up, and large scale bourbon and rye fermentations, American whiskey fermentations. As soon as we get all the cooling hooked up, as far as running water to the condensers, I won't have cooling for the fermenters yet, but that gives me a chance to play around with my Kvike yeast and see how I can really push that. So that program is still a little bit out, and I don't have a real great time frame on exactly when that'll get going. I would say, and whatever I say, add 3 months to it, because that's the way that the startup thing works. I would tend to think that we would have that tasting room open in time for Christmas. So
that'd be great.
That's what I'm hoping, and we will see. We'll see how that plays. It will definitely be open by next spring, regardless, one way, shape, form, or the other. But it's been interesting to be in the middle of opening a distillery that you're still working on, and being in the middle of production, doing that with open top wooden barrel fermenters and all that stuff. And so there's been a lot of ingenuity going to what is the workaround for this? How do I make this work? Because I have to make it work today. So.
Yeah. Well, that's got to be a challenge, but you're also learning new ways of doing something. Through necessity, you're learning new ways to do something that you've done before. Kind of a standard way, right?
If I had not been a home distiller or a moonshiner, I'm not trying to brag on home distillers or moonshiners all the time over top of any, trained distiller.
Mm-hmm.
I think a trained distiller would have a real hard time with this situation. I think they really would, because they're not used to those. They're not used to having to set things up in a way that's not standardized. Right. Yeah. So, I lean into that pretty hard. And now that I have a new still hand, Tyler, who comes from a home distilling background as well, he understands it in the same way that I do. And luckily he has some skills that I don't have when it comes to, fixing things and carpentry and all that sort of stuff. So he's a great teammate for sure.
Good. This is where I was trying to figure out in this photo, what in the heck am I doing with the hat backwards?
Right. I was kind of wondering what was going on there.
I think you just picked up a bottle of Blanton's, I think.
And nobody's eyes look right.
No,
we all look like we all have one lazy eye. Just
it's really, really bad. I think I had another distillery logo on that front of the hat, so I just kind of looked hat around. So but yeah, we were up there a couple months ago and got to visit and see everything, and it was fantastic. And got to take home just a little bit of some of the sunflower stuff. And Mike, I think you've got some of that in your glass as well.
I do. I've been sipping on that while we've been sitting here.
And so, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, number one, it pairs pretty darn well with a Reese's pumpkin. But then again, it is a Reese's pumpkin, so it's like pairing with air. But no, I love this because it is so oily and dense with flavor, and it's when that oil breaks. The thing I like about that when you sip it, there's flavor, but then when that oil starts to break through, it just coats everything in your mouth, and you can you can taste every one of the ingredients in it. I mean, there's no, and it's not a it doesn't taste like a stereotypical new make spirit. In fact, it tastes nothing like a stereotypical new make spirit in any way whatsoever. And we talked about this. I guess it was a show with David and Steve on there too. And the thing, they were shocked. I can't remember what the proof is on this, because I remember it being north of 140, but I remember them both being very shocked.
Yes. Yeah.
140. That's what went in the jar at 140 for sure. So,
and it certainly doesn't drink 140.
No.
And the flavor really comes through on this, but this is a sunflower based distillate, right, Alan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So talk a little bit about that process, how that works, where that came from. I know there's a great story behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the sunflower thing, the original idea for sunflower based spirits came from Moonshine Mike Stallings, my brother who passed away just a couple years ago. And so Mike and I, we would sort of challenge each other. So now Mike was an old school moonshiner, right? Now he wasn't doing like all grain mashes and stuff like that. I think he did just a couple, there that after I started teaching him that side of things. Before that, it was all cane sugar based, and that's what he did. And there's nothing wrong with that. That can be a high art form, just like bourbon or rye can be a high art form. It gets a bad name because a lot of people put out bad products for years, and we got to switch that around. So we're going to be creative, and we're gonna really get through this bourbon bubble, which is a thing. I don't care what anybody wants to write about it, anybody wants to say about it. It's a thing, and it is here. If us craft distillers are going to make it through that, I better be doing something adventurous and something different that has a little different twist to it. So the long and short of it is that Mike and I would sort of trade recipes back and forth and ideas back and forth. And it was kind of like a challenge to one another. So we would call each other if we had a spiritual idea, or we'd call each other if we had, moonshine ideas, home distilling ideas, etc.
Right.
And he threw sunflowers at me one time. And the reason he did it was because he had like a partial bag of black oil sunflowers that he was going to feed to the birds. And he was like, well, why not? Let's throw them into a mash. And so I think he did black oil sunflower. He did wheat, and I think he did rye because that's what he had on hand. And then, of course, sugar, about 1 pound per gallon or so of sugar is what he was running at the time. He didn't grind the sunflowers, didn't do anything to it. But when he ran it on his 50-gallon still Sandra, which is a double thumper system, which is what we have at Old Homestead, also inspired by Mike. And that was not something from my past. That was something that I picked up from Mike, was the double thumper thing. I've done singles and stuff like that before, but the long and short of it was he was creative enough that he literally filled one of those thumpers with an infusion of tails with ginger in it, and another one, the second thumper, the smaller thumper, he put L8 into. Right, I never heard of anybody throwing soda into a thumper, which I thought was pretty cool, but it made great spirit. And so we started, talking back and forth on this. And I thought, well, I'll play around with sunflowers too, but it wasn't enough for me just to take the black oil sunflowers because I have to overthink everything. I was like, well, what can I do with these? Well, what happens when you malt them? Which was interesting. And you figure out that there's no starch in them or anything of that nature. You literally, by the time they malt, it's just the plant and the shell and the oil. That's all it is. So it's kind of vegetative. So I realized pretty quickly that the oil was really where a lot of the flavor was coming from. A lot of the mouthfeel was coming from. And I thought, well, what happens if I were to roast those? Maybe I could get something interesting out of that plant flavor. And it turns out that you get a really cool kind of like almondy sort of characteristic that comes across, or even sometimes a fruity characteristic, which is, I had a hard time putting my finger on that. And that's why I like listening to what people say about the flavor itself. Steve Coombs sort of kind of nailed it when he mentioned mezcal not too long ago. And I had not caught that before. That completely slipped me 100%, that it has a little bit of that mezcal sort of thing, plus that roastiness. So we started malted and roasting sunflowers, and I came up with various different derivatives. What you have is basically malted roasted sunflower, some raw sunflower, which we don't treat like grain. We treat those like botanicals. Like, we're not grinding those to a dust. We're bruising them like a botanical is all we're doing. Cane sugar, of course, is there. I have no problem saying that we use cane sugar. I see nothing wrong with using cane sugar as long as it's making a good product. Who cares? If it's a good ingredient that makes a good product, who cares? Right. And I guarantee you that bag of cane sugar is more pure than any bag of corn that you're buying in from anywhere. So we also added wheat and rye, raisins. There's raisins in all the sunflower shines, all the sunshines. That's there for mouthfeel as much as anything, but also a little bit of that sort of brandy-like texture. And then we use that particular yeast is South African brandy yeast is what we use for that particular fermentation. But that's all getting mashed in the old way. That's going into wooden wine barrels and wooden bourbon barrels that I knock the tops out of. And we use a mash rake, and we get in there and we really dig at it and make it go. And it's a pain in the ass when you're fermenting it, because those sunflowers all float back up to the top and make a huge cap. I mean, the cap will be almost 2 foot deep. So you have to go in every day and push that cap down and turn that cap over, because if you don't, you're getting vinegar and all that alcohol is coming to the top and it's evaporating off. And so we still lose some of that alcohol. That particular product actually loses yield every time that we run it, because you're evaporating some of it off because it wants to float back to the top all the time. But that's all about management. That's what this open top fermentation thing is. That's how the distillery set up. We've got windows that open with a door that opens. So we have cross breeze. We're bringing in the microbes from outside, etc. Our main yeast, not for that product, but for others, is one we captured from one of the local towns. It's now underwater. Most of it's underwater, not all of it. And we're really in the business of how do we wrangle that bioflora? How do we keep what we want and keep out what we don't want, or keep it in manageable states, etc. So that gets run through the through Artemisia. So 250-gallon base pot still with 2 thumpers, an 82-gallon thumper and a 40-gallon thumper. The 40 is one of my old moonshine stills, which I think is pretty damn cool and pretty unique to see in a distillery, that it now has, you know, a serial number and is registered in the whole 9 yards and all that stuff. But we cut very clean for that product. No heads, no tails, as clean as can be, the heart of the hearts, as it were. And it just so happens that the average is right around double pot still proof, right at about 140 proof. We don't add anything extra to the thumpers. Mash goes back into those thumpers, and that's it. So there'll be 2 versions of that. The one that you guys have currently, and then there's like a Let It Kiss Amburana version. And when I say Let It Kiss Amburana, I mean it is in and out, enough to give it color and a little aroma and just a little of that cinnamon characteristic. But the goal with this whole thing was to pay tribute to Moonshine Mike Stallings, because I loved him dearly. He was one of my best friends in the world. I miss the hell out of him every day. Every day I miss him, and I wish I could talk to him. But also to pay tribute to where I came from, who I was, my background, what I added to that. And more importantly, to present a white spirit to people that was complex, that had something really going for it, that really had some oomph behind it, as though it had been in a barrel, but never touched a barrel, right? Because I think people, especially where we're at, Kentucky and Indiana, right, they discount immediately white spirits because they've had so many experiences with White Dog. As you guys said, it's not White Dog. Now, right. I have products that will match that traditional moonshine sort of character. Without a doubt, I have those. This is not one of them, right? And there's 2 that stand out. There's this one and one that you guys haven't got to try yet called the Wycliffe Bell, which is a smoked oat thing that is absolutely glorious. It might be my favorite thing I've ever made at this point. So
wow,
it's sort of my response at Old Homestead to competing with myself at Spirits of French Lick with the Whiskey Witch. So
very cool.
So you mentioned Artemisia. So what are the names of the other stills?
Yeah, so Artemisia, which gets used specifically for sunshine spirits, as I still got to get used to saying that, right? I'm so used to saying moonshine. I got to get used to saying sunshine. But we use specifically for sunshine spirits, and another line that we call Black Forest spirits, which is like white peach brandies, white apple brandies, made in that traditional way. And then there is Maria, which is our 500-gallon stripping still. And Maria is named after Maria, the alchemist Maria the Jewess. Very decent possibility that Maria the Jewess, Maria the alchemist in Alexandria, Egypt, may have also have corresponded to Mary Magdalene. They were both Essenes. They both lived around the 1st century AD. Mary Magdalene would have needed somewhere to run off to. Alexandria would have been the safest place. So as a female alchemist, you know, it was appropriate to name a female still after her in particular. And then Rose, which is our 250-gallon with an offset gin basket and an offset column. Rose is a name that would show up throughout history, and it was typically applied to someone who was considered a sacred woman, like that sacred divine, sacred feminine, you know, Isis, Inanna, Ishtar, that sort of thing. But also folks like, you know, Medea or Artemisia or any of that bunch of the Scythian sort of background as well. So,
yeah. And here's a photo of Wycliffe Bell. So what is unique about this one, Alan?
Yeah, so that was very much inspired by Killowen Distillery in Ireland. Those guys impressed the hell out of me with their white spirits, especially their poachine, and I love poachine. It's something that if Aidan Pemberton is around, there's going to be some Killowen poachine around for sure. So it has showed up at Mount Vernon many times. And it's something that it's sort of an acquired sort of thing. Like, it's not going to be for everybody, just like, you know, smoky Islay Scotch isn't for everybody, right? But very much inspired by what Brendan's doing at Killowen. So that is a smoked oats is the main base, and that is Irish peat that we're using. It's sort of an ironic little cultural history here, but around the lake, you know, most of the Black Forest of Indiana is German. but there were pockets of Welsh and Scots Irish. And around the lake, there was a lot of Welsh and Scots Irish, which is where that Newton Stewart name comes from. So Newton Stewart, of course, shows up in Ireland and England and Wales, etc. Right? Those are names of royals at the time. So right down the road, there used to be a little town called Wycliffe, and there's a cemetery there now that's called the Wycliffe Cemetery. The old church that was there had a bell in it. And when they took the church down, they took the bell out and they put it underneath the shelter house. And they actually put the little thing on there where you can actually ring the bell still, which I'd seen it several times driving by. And I was like, that's pretty, I got to stop by there. And like, I have to go ring the bell, right? Cemeteries are sort of one of my things. So I have to go ring the bell. And it just dawned on me, like, you want to pay tribute to the people here and you don't have a particular story or a particular personality to name something after. All right, well, then let's lean into that Scots, Irish, Welsh thing. And let's make a smoked oat poachine, but let's do it American style to where it has just a little bit of corn in it. So we do a little Elise corn in it. We are bumping it with sugar. Again, I have no problem admitting that I'm using sugar in some of these spirits. I'm not even inverting it because it's not needed. Our water does everything we need it to do. That sugar is not hot. It's not too forward. I have zero problems with it. And I think most consumers won't either once they taste it. But then we also add some apples into that fermentation. We also add raisins. We double up on the raisins. There's a little bit of the sunflower in there as well. I mean, just a very little bit of the sunflower. And then once it goes into the still, we actually take about 30 pounds or so of apples and we peat smoke the hell out of those. And then we throw those into the thumper. And so we're pulling that apple and the peat off at the same time and imbuing the spirit with that. And because it's Irish peat, it's a little light. It's actually a lot lighter than Islay peat is. It's a little fruitier than Islay peat is. Some of that will be available as white spirit on a very limited basis. That probably won't always be available as a white spirit. It might be like I'll do several runs of it, keep the best run back. That'll go out as white spirit, 50 gallons, at a time, whatever. The rest of it is going into mostly number 3 char. I broke my own rules. See,
wow,
number 3 char, New American Oak. Now, the bourbons and ryes and the American whiskeys are never touching 3 char. I'm stuck on 2 char, and that's where I'm going to be at with that. But the Wycliffe Bell will hold 3 char. And here's the really cool thing. I don't even know. A few barrels are going to age truly mature. Some of those barrels, though, we're going to treat this like we're home distillers. We're going to look for that balance between the little bit of that oak sugar that we want and the color that we want and the flavor of that spirit, because it is not cut in such a way to hold up to a barrel over time. I want this to be something that's truly inspired by poaching and by moonshine distillers and home distillers. So it's not going to be something that's going to be, 8, 9, 10 years old down the road. There might be a couple barrels that do that just out of curiosity, but and then we'll reuse those barrels for something else. So,
yeah, no. And I remember when you're at the old place, and the mainstream kind of caught on to Lisa and Claire, and I think when it was probably 3 years old, right before Bottled and Bond came out, and the comment kept bouncing around those circles. Wow, just what do you think this will taste like when it's 10 or 15 years old? It wasn't made to be aged for 10 or 15 years, right? So, and if you're going heart of the hearts with it, then you're not needing that barrel to do that kind of work to clean it up either.
I shouldn't help my competition, but I'll just throw this out there for funsies. There's some 8-year Lee Sinclair in barrels right now, and I bet if you just burned up the phones over at that other place, you might get to taste it eventually.
Dare to dream.
If you're vetted.
So gotta get them mic drop prices.
Jeez. Why did you choose to go 3 char on this one?
Honestly, so here's the other thing that I've learned over the years about myself is that I can spin a yarn with the best of them, and I could tell you some really great bullshit reason. The truth of the matter is because Joe Lee bought some 3 char barrels somewhere before I ever got there, and they were sitting in the warehouse, and yes. And so they were sitting in the warehouse, and they had to be used somewhere. And I thought, Wycliffe Bell is just heavy enough that I think it'll hold up to that, especially if you're not going prolonged aging, right? Yeah. You're not going prolonged maturation. You're just really after those wood sugars and to sort of smooth things out a little bit, round it out a little bit. I think they work great for that. So
She couldn't keep away.
He now lives rent free in your head.
Oh, wow. One of the other things that we got to try that day was some absinthe. And so, Alan, tell us about the absinthe that you're making there. You said you're going to do 3 different kinds of absinthe. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. And it may be more than that over time. Just depends, because we do have the 17-gallon little still Bridget, by the way. It's like a drinking game. Yes. We do have Brigid, which we can do all kinds of crazy stuff on, and we'll do a lot of our cocktail mixers and stuff will come off of that still. So I know I'm going to be doing curacao and things of that nature off of that still in particular. So we will have a true vert absinthe. But it will be based very much in the French style. There will be nothing Americanized about it. It'll just be the type of absinthe that I like to make when I was making absinthe at home. Kind of if there is such a thing, an everyday drinker as far as an absinthe goes. There will also be an amethyst style absinthe, right? I've done one of these before through my friends at Key West Trading Company, Jim Martin. But mine that I have for myself and for Old Homestead is quite a bit different. That is a truly purple absinthe made with maize morado corn. It has a lot of roots in it, a lot of earthiness to it. A very, very much heavier on the palate sort of absinthe. And then the other one is one that I'm tentatively calling Lion. And so it's colored with marigolds. And you guys were there the day that I actually began the coloration process. I've added some more marigolds since then because I know that color is going to fade a bit. And that's part of what we want. Oh, yeah. Awesome. So that's a big boy absinthe right there. That thing is packed to the gills with botanicals. And I think overall, actually that vert absinthe, by the way, is called the 13th because there's 13 botanicals. But the one that you guys have there, that one is, just packed to the brim with all kinds of stuff. And now the wormwood there is much bigger, much bolder than what a lot of people are used to. You're going to have to really be into bitters and things of that nature to really understand that absinthe and really wrap your head around it. But I'm telling you, if you want a Sazerac, that's what you want to wash your glass with, is that absinthe. You don't want something that has that pastis sort of nature to it, where it's just the anise and the fennel coming through.
Yeah, this is not an absinthe for the sissies.
No.
No.
When I opened the jar, it was just like whoosh, it just, everything just came out of that, and the scent was fantastic.
It is the Bill Hicks of absinthe.
Yes, it is. You
give me a room with 100 people, I will find 10 that like absinthe and 1 that like that one, which is okay, because I can get away with that sort of stuff here, right? I have 15 gallons, or not even 15 gallons of that right now. I have like 8 gallons of that. Oops. And that's what's initially going to come out. And it's not going to get made again until that sells. Yeah. And if it sets for a while, it sets for a while. Who cares? I'm doing it in little bitty batches. It's fine. I don't have to do a 250 gallon batch at one time. So,
Tom says he's just joining to learn new ways to conjugate distilling notes and curse words. So, hey,
I charge for that. I do classes.
Whatever it takes. And cheers to Tommy. He had a little spill the other day and is recovering from an injury. So drink more whiskey, Tom. Yes. Not with your Oxy pain reliever or anything. that would be frowned upon. Right. So, Mike, thoughts on this absinthe?
It's fantastic. The thing that I do like about it is, the absence of the ores that I have had. That's very hard to say. The absinthes that I have had, they are, I'll call them more traditional as me. I'm not a student of it. I tried absinthe a long time ago, but that was when you tried it because it was high proof, and that was for a specific reason. But since then, trying a few of them where you get ones that are, I'll say absinthe to call it absinthe, because there's some that are that, and yes, they do have that anise on it, and that's it. But this is just its body and flavor, and it is so it's just like with the sunflower one. There's the oiliness here. It takes you for a ride. It's just, it has all the flavors. There's a lot of botanical to it, but there's that underlying, like I'm drinking absinthe. But you mentioned that making a Sazerac. That is a really good idea to do a wash with this. Very careful wash, but
and now that color is set where I want it at, the other thing that'll happen with that now is there'll be just a tiny little bit of French oak that'll set on it for a month or two. Not much, just enough to give a little more structure. I should also mention this. Pettiness being pettiness. I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but this is the world's first absinthe made with pure sunshine. They've been made with moonshine before. They've never been made with pure sunshine.
Well, that I'm not surprised. I mean, I honestly, until you started sharing about making using sunflowers in what you were making at home, I'd never heard of such.
Right. Yeah. I've waited a few years to say that.
What is she doing? I don't know. I'm not sure what she's laughing at there.
She's entertaining herself.
Ah!
Oh man. The very first. Okay. Hang on. She thinks this is cute. All right.
Come on the show and say it.
Stop it. Okay.
She didn't spell that STAHP, so she doesn't mean it.
No, it does not. Not a bit. So you've also been working on a project with Eric Wolf up at Stolen Wolf. Any updates on that?
So it sounds like I need to catch up with Eric again. I talked to him last week, but it sounds like they might be doing, I don't know if they're just going to do them as tasting bottles or if they might possibly sell a few bottles of white spirit. We did set some white spirit aside, and there's been discussion of potentially bottling some of that white spirit. I did a little Distillers calendar graphic with the rosette on it. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but I think if it does get bottled, that's probably going to end up being the label for the Wolf and Wilson project. And then every year that I do one, once we release the actual matured product, it'll be that year's calendar that goes on there. So it is going to be a Pennsylvania only thing. Right. And I will make sure, obviously, that you guys, get some bottles, but it's important to me that it stays a Pennsylvania only thing. I think that there's something really special about go somewhere, do a thing, pay tribute to that state, and have it be in that state.
Yeah.
I think that that's so much cooler than, and Aviana and Eric are so kind and welcoming. They've offered to send me a barrel out here, and I'm not having it. I want it in Pennsylvania. That's where it needs to be at. That's its home. And honestly, that's my second home at this point. I love it out there. I love working with Eric and Aviana, and just like at Old Homestead, it's so insulated from the bullshit in the industry in general. Like you're not playing by the same rules that everybody else is playing in Louisville and Lexington and Frankfurt or even Indianapolis or whatever. And I love that. I love that I don't have to play by those rules when I go to Pennsylvania or with what I'm doing at Old Homestead. It's not necessary. And the people that love it will find it. And the people that love it will be the people that have followed the things that I've done, in the past, whether that, comes to Old Homestead, people coming there on tour or coming through because they don't even know anything about the distillery, or the people in Pennsylvania who truly, unlike any state I've ever seen, the people in Pennsylvania care about the distilleries in Pennsylvania. And it's a very different aspect from what you see anywhere else. And I love it.
No. Well, you're not, not that I mean, you obviously could take pride in some of those things, but the awards and pursuing spirits competitions and that kind of thing, you kind of free yourself from that rat race if you choose to.
Yeah. I kind of feel like, honestly, I mean, there's a few little awards things here and there. Like, I don't know, the ones that are consumer driven, I really like, and I especially really like the ones that literally are consumer driven to the point of like, hey, let's yank people off the street that don't even drink, right? And let's get their opinions. That I really like. But other than that, the accolades of people that I know and that I trust their palates, whether I'm friends with them or not. Being friends is a bonus, but I don't expect anybody to ever give me a good review just because they know me. But those are the accolades that mean more. And I feel like I've already done this little awards thing. Like I feel like I've proven my point, right? That part for me, that part of my career, I feel like is over with. I don't feel like I need to do that now. Maybe us as a company would decide to do some, awards programs later on, etc. But I think I've proven my point. I don't think it's necessary to do that anymore. I would much rather just talk to the customers and see what they have to say.
Yeah.
The awards things are the awards things, and you can get real tied up in that, and it can become a real ego thing. And the problem is when it becomes a real ego thing and you're on top of the world, then you're waiting for it. And then when you don't get it, you feel like, A, you feel like you should have, and B, which is wrong in the first place. And then B, you just start tearing yourself down, and that's pointless. It doesn't, why it's spirits. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be this ugly, egocentric thing where you're destroying yourself just for the accolades. What's the point?
Yeah.
So,
well, with everything that you've got, the things that you've announced so far tonight that you have coming out, I mean, I think you've proven that point, because you could have just gone the easy route. And I don't mean that to come out as snotty at all, but I'll say the stereotypical route of, we're going to make a bourbon. In the meantime, we're going to make vodka and gin, because we have to have something that people can sell, which is completely and totally, absolutely understandable. Right. But you're not doing it the easy, tried and true way. You're doing the way where, as you've said for years, is bourbon's great, rye's great, but that's not where the future is. And it's all these other spirits. And right off the bat, out of those nearly 80 distillations that you've done, it's a lot of different other spirits. It's not bourbon and rye, which I look forward to, because I'm sure it's going to be good. But the other stuff is, you're taking people on a journey, and I think that's really cool.
I appreciate that. And I will brag on one more thing here that I've waited years to say, because I kind of have to. So I also have been putting away a whole bunch of our Newton Stewart Sunshine, which is our Elise corn-based Sunshine. And I've been putting that into once used red wine barrels from Patoka Lake Winery, because why not? If I was a moonshiner or home distiller and I could buy some red wine barrels, guess what I'd put my moonshine in, right? I'd put it in red wine barrels. And I have done that in the past with my father and my grandfather. But what I'm aiming for here is a big announcement. In 4 years, I will have the world's first bottled and bond pure sunshine. Pure sunshine, bottled and bond. Nobody else. No, I appreciate the compliments, Mike. I'm getting a few things out of my system, as you can tell, and it feels pretty good. It feels pretty cathartic. So, but no, I really appreciate that, and we will do a gin. It's actually called Two Gingers Gin, because Jolie and Heather are gingers, and so we'll play into. So we'll play. Wow, that might be the label. That could be.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Are you gonna sell it in 375s?
I feel like that would come up short. But so that'll be that's actually an orange juice based gin. Something, a lot of this stuff comes from my old home distilling notes, and that's something I did several years ago, and Jolie loved that gin, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do an orange juice based gin that's really weird. We're, as of right now, I have them talked into not doing vodka, and I hope it stays that way. But our alternative to that is literally a thing that we are currently calling, now whether TTB lets us label it this way or not, I don't know. It'll be a DSS, but what we're currently calling not vodka, which is our base sunshine, which is a little bit of sunflower and a lot of oats. That's what we make our flavored stuff out of. But then we are literally going to take that. We're going to grind up some sugar maple charcoal into straight up carbon dust, and we're going to filter the hell out of it. And the goal is, we're not even going to try to distill to 190. We're going to go to 170 like we do for our absinthe with the same product. We're going to leave some flavor behind in it. It is very much inspired by the old Russian samogons, which were the original vodkas of their time. It's where there's still a little flavor left behind, but if you want to throw some cranberry in that and go about it, it's fine. We're not picky about it. right?
Yeah.
I think that it's a cheap enough product that we can do it, without having a big financial burden to do it. But it's also an artistic project because of the things that we're using. And ultimately it doesn't cost that much more than it would to go buy some GNS and filter it and call it vodka, which is disingenuous to begin with.
Right.
Most of the time, unless you're just telling people that that's what you're doing, which nobody's telling people that that's what they're doing, and that's what they're all doing.
Yeah. Now, I want to clarify the term sunshine and how you're using it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you referring to that as sunflower-based unaged distillates, or are you saying that, okay, this is sunshine because we're making it in the daylight and not in the dark, like outlaws?
Both. Both, very much so. Both. Definitely sunshine, obviously, because of the sunflower component. There's, like I said, there's sort of within the wider category of what people might otherwise consider moonshine. There's the sunshine, and then there's the Black Forest spirits. They both kind of fall into that same sort of category, just that the Black Forest spirits don't have any sunflowers in them because it's not warranted, right? You don't want sunflowers in your peach brandy. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. I'm not going to do it right now, but at some point that could be a thing. You never know. But yes, the other reason is because I have always refused to call. And there are guys that make quote unquote moonshine that I really respect. Mark Hatfield is one of them. Spencer Valentine's one of them. There's several of those guys I really respect, but I personally would not call a legal product a moonshine. Right. I don't feel like that's an appropriate thing, right? It's not protected in any way, shape, or form, but it's a little disingenuous a lot of times when people do that because they don't have any background in moonshining. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're not even making actual moonshine. So for me, moonshine is something that's illegal. It's something that is, it's not even the same as home distilling. There's a distinction there. A moonshiner is actually selling product. A home distiller is just distilling it for himself or to give to friends or family, whatever.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a distinction there, and that's not a judgment on moonshiners. I love moonshiners, obviously. I come from a family of them. I have to love them. I have no choice. So I get disinherited one way or the other if I didn't. But I'm not doing that anymore. What I'm doing now is I'm literally taking all the things I learned in my world of moonshining and my family and from the history of the Black Forest and all the things I learned from home distilling, and I'm putting them into a tourist facility where people will walk through and see how things are done the old way. It's just scaled up equipment, but everything there is the same sort of stuff that I had at home. Now, there's some guys that be like, well, I don't run no tri-clamps on my stills. Everything's pasted. I've done that before too, but I'm not going to do that with a 500 gallon still, guys. Just bear with me.
Yeah.
Let's make some things easier on ourselves, but we're making our own malt from the sunflowers. We're making our own malt from the corn. We're for a product called the 9-herb charm, which is an Old Norse, via England, an Old Norse spell that we're turning into an actual distillate. We're actually malting and smoking the rye ourselves. Right. So it's very much hands-on like that home distilling moonshining thing, but it's in the light of the day, right? It's where you can see it. So now it doesn't mean I'm going to tell you everything I do, but you'll be able to see most of it.
If you're paying sales tax on it, it's not moonshine.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Right.
If the government is involved, it is not moonshine.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, thanks for the clarification. I think that makes that makes perfect sense, and I think everybody can understand what you're doing with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I know is near and dear to you is music, and on the show we talk about whiskey and music. So, while you were going through the process, or while you've been going through the process of getting everything set up at Old Homestead and creating these new mash bills and processes, what's been the music that's been going on in your head or in the distillery?
That kind of covers a longer time period than people realize. But the first album that I played in the distillery was Days of the New Orange, because we're an Indiana distillery, and that seemed appropriate. So that was the first album that got played front to back in the distillery. Certainly a lot of typo negative, as always. I've learned to sort of avoid the some of the more negative connotations of typo negative in terms of falling into some of those emotional traps and look at them in a different light. But certainly that's been a big thing. Peter Murphy has been a big deal for probably the past, I don't know, year plus or so, but definitely in the past 6 months, a lot of Peter Murphy. I was actually going to get on here late, and I had some Monster Magnet teed up because I was going to have some intro music. So, just me rolling down the road, just screaming Monster Magnet lyrics, as it should be, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, mostly the same stuff I've always really been into. There's a sort of outlaw country guy that I've gotten to really like, Steven Wilson Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah, really love that. And he's an Indiana boy. So that really fits the bill. And then I had a little bit of a joygasm last night with the whole Maynard James Keenan covering Ozzy Osbourne thing. So 14-year-old me lost his shit over that for sure. I don't know that it was really all that impressive when you watch it, but 14-year-old me was like, yes, do it, do the thing, Maynard James Keenan. And then I read an article. I don't know. Did you see this, Kevin? There was an article that came out with Alex Van Halen, and he was talking about the thing that almost happened in 2001, which was Van Halen doing an album with Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
And I had like just enough interest in that to be like, I'd have bought that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like he's totally not going to cover any of the David Lee Roth songs in concert or any of the Sammy stuff, but yeah. But I would have went to that car.
See Ozzy do the splits,
right?
Okay.
Or Ozzy and assless chaps.
The whole time we've been going through this tonight, she's answering the questions and active in the chat.
She could have been here,
and she actually kind of hurt my feelings because she got real snippy about not coming on this show.
She did. That was one hell of a text message she sent back to you about how she doesn't participate.
No, and
I mean, it was like she was
hurt.
I feel like you just asking offended her. Like, I mean, just pissed all over her toes or something. I don't know. But it was. I don't know. I felt for you. Now I understood it because it's Jolie, and I'm like, nah, she doesn't like me. So I get what's going on here, but man, it was quick too. Like she responded fast.
Yeah, it took no thought.
No, she had that locked and loaded.
So what she said, she plays Madonna in her office, but I guess I would find it hard to say that you're going to play Madonna in your office when you're also trying to plan a release of Johnny Cougar Spirits. Because there's no Cougar and Sunshine; they just go hand in hand.
I was thinking we just hook up with Larry Bird.
Well, you could.
Larry Bird's Sunshine, world's greatest dad picture.
There we go.
There you go.
It's about time for an Axl Rose whiskey. That's what we need.
Which Axl Rose?
Listen, I will go with Fat Axl. And it'll be fine. We could do two. We could do an immature spirit, which is Axl when he's young, and we could do a mature spirit, which is Fat Axl.
Oh, what about Fat Axl? It's distilled Oreos.
Just saying. Rye would make a great base for some distilled Oreos.
Or a cocktail in the lounge called a Fat Axl, which is absinthe Oreos. Or it'd be your take on a Sazerac. But there's Oreos.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah.
We can do a cocktail. We'll just call it Welcome to the Diabetes.
There you go.
Welcome to the diabetes. Oh, welcome to the Krispy Kreme. Oh, that's hilarious. Hang on. Getting this Fat Axl picture here for us.
Is there a midget Axl?
Probably.
Guarantee there's a mini Guns N' Roses.
There has to be. There has to be. There's no way there's not.
There he is.
That's Eric Cartman. That's not Axl Rose. It's Eric Cartman.
He looks like a way less talented version of Sam Kinison.
Yeah.
Oh man. Somebody we've not seen in a while is where'd it go? Yeah. This guy.
We watched the other night. My son started watching the Netflix series on Vince McMahon, And I got 1.5 episodes in, but they were talking about the early history and trying to bring stuff up on there. And I looked away for 5 seconds and I looked back up, and guess who's on the screen? Dusty. Because he was talking about him trying to get Dusty, and Dusty said no. And so then they played a whole bunch of Dusty rants, and it was beautiful.
Dusty Rhodes is still in there, but I keep him a little more under control nowadays than what I did. But he'll show back up eventually. He almost showed up tonight, but the jacket is there's a lot of colors on there other than red, white, and blue nowadays. Dirty. And I mean, that's what you get when you wear that thing when you're drunk, and baby oil's involved, and
maybe more than what we wanted to hear. So
just saying, you have to look shiny somehow. That's how you look shiny. It's not like I put GHB in it or buy it in bulk or anything. Oh, no P. Diddy jokes. Okay.
No, too soon.
Okay.
And then this picture is, floated around for a bit. So we've talked about this before, but kind of tell everybody what was going on here.
Well, I could make up a story that would be much more interesting, but really what is going on is that still head was not seated quite properly, and they needed someone fat and gullible to climb up there to set on it to get it to seat properly. And so, being the heathen that I am, I thought that I'd just go ahead and take advantage of it, and it worked out wonderfully. I mean, look at those New Balance dad shoes. Come on now.
Yep. Looking good.
Right.
I like it.
Right? That's all I can be and more in middle age. Truthfully. What more could you ask for? You could put that picture on my tombstone. It'd be fine.
Oh, I think there's others that we put on your tombstone.
I mean, if you were mocking it in any way, your pants would have been around your ankles and you'd been reading a newspaper.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
So there's a serious reason for you to be up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Legitimate.
Yep. You don't get to climb up on George Washington stills and set on them very often. I'm just, just saying, even if I was being poked fun of a little bit, it's worth it. Every bit of
it. Yeah. I bet you were the first.
Probably. I'm certainly the first one that pictures escaped of.
All right. So we'll kind of start bringing this thing in for a landing, but we wanted to make sure that we properly or improperly, or however you want to put it, honored Alan Bishop Day. And, this was the 4th anniversary of Alan Bishop Day. And
next year's a big one.
Next year's big 05.
That's right.
So we'll have to do something with that. I don't know.
Start in on the propaganda now. The saddest day of the year is the day after Alan Bishop Day. But the happiest
if you're gonna put up Christmas decorations October 1st, I mean, the least you can do is start in July.
Sure.
She disappears from her office every once in a while. I'm just going to say this about Christmas decorations. She disappears from her office every once in a while, and she's gone. And it's always, I got to go to the winery, or I got to go do something important with my job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure she is just literally going over to the winery warehouse and just staring at her Christmas decorations, just staring at them, not even doing anything.
Soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's what's happening.
Yep, like a Hallmark movie.
Oh,
like
God.
a Hallmark movie. All right, so Alan, what do you want to tell everybody to be on the lookout for? What can they do right now to help you and help what you're doing at Old Homestead?
Well, go like the Old Homestead Facebook and Instagram pages and all of that stuff, and make sure you're following all that, including the hotel and also Patoka Lake Winery and the marina and all that stuff, because it's all interrelated. I mean, you'll see an announcement go out across all those platforms, and all those things are things that you'll be able to do when you come to the distillery. Just keep an eye out for when we're ready to open up. We will initially, when we open up, we'll probably have 5 or 6 different products and several different cocktails would be my guess. It's going to be a really neat experience because we have a hotel attached, so you can come in, you can have a good time, you can tour the distillery, come back out to the tasting room, drink a little bit, drink a lot of it, wander out to the brewery, go have a beer, wander over to the winery, go have some wine, mix and match, whatever suits your taste. you don't have to worry about finding a way home. You just go find your way to your hotel room and pass out till the next day.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get out on a boat and, work that hangover off by puking off the side of it, then we've got that covered too. This is good advertisement, I feel like, but we call it alcohol acres for a reason. It's a good time for everybody, but it's also family oriented. I will say that there, you don't just come to the lake just to drink. There is the lake there and there's various different things. In the wintertime, I don't know if we'll get to it this year or not, but we'll be doing classes and stuff on distilling related to home distilling as well as professional distilling and all that stuff. So that's something to look forward to. There's always going to be a lot of one-offs and stuff, but right now just keep your eye on when we're opening up and all that stuff. We do also, I should say, we do have a bunch of aged product that because of Indiana laws being what they are, since we didn't make it in our facility, we can't technically put it in the tasting room. But we do have 3-year-old single malt that is alder smoked and beechwood smoked in the only sane house in the United States, which is up at Sugar Creek Malt. We have 2 different bourbon mash bills, a rye mash bill and a malted rye mash bill. We just can't do anything with it just quite yet. Good night. Love you.
Good night, Penny.
Mike and Kevin said good night.
Night. Bye, guys.
So we have all that stuff. And so we will in time, we'll probably go ahead and file for the other federal DSP license. We won't be able to sell that in our tasting room unless we get the laws changed, but there will be aged product. And rest assured, even though that was not made in our facilities, that was made using my yeast strain, my mash bills, my methodology to my specs while I was consulting.
Mm-hmm.
It's for all intents and purposes our whiskey, but it was also made by our really good friends up at Moondrops. And those guys are great distillers. There were very few people that I would have chosen, and you guys know this, to distill my whiskey. And prerequisite being that they're in Indiana, those guys are at the top of that list.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I honestly was a little surprised when you said that you had somebody do that for you, because I thought there's going to be a very, very short list of people that Alan would trust with that.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to say that it's different than we'll be making those same mash bills and everything else using the same yeast, etc. But it's very different from what we will make. I have no problem saying that. And when it's gone, right? So if you like that version, then get that version, right? And then learn to like our version, or maybe you like our version better. It doesn't matter. It's all unique. It's all experiential. It's all fun. And you got to work with your friends. That's the thing. You got to work with your friends in this industry. And in this industry, there are few and far between. So when you find good ones, you better stick with them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What I've learned over the years is whatever you make, it's not going to be boring.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's not going to be something that you really just put in a box. It's going to be interesting. It's going to challenge you. It's going to make you think more about what's in that bottle than just, cracking the top and getting rid of the neck pour, of course, and then diving in.
Yeah. One more little wrap up piece for me though, that I should say. So we have a great team at Old Homestead, including my father, who is now officially retired, but he will be working part-time at the distillery, and he will very much be a part of this going into the future. And I'm sure he'll be glad to play the role of Jimmy Russell. But Steve Shirk and Stephen Bartels and Heather Setzer and Joe Lee and the new still hand Tyler Richardson, and we got Bob in there and Kim as well. It's a fantastic team. It's a great opportunity. This is the first time that I've worked in a distillery other than out at Stolen Wolf or at Mount Vernon where I felt at home. This is the first distillery in Indiana where I felt at home and felt like I was actually part of something. And this is where I plan to wrap things up for myself. So I don't intend to go anywhere, and had things been different elsewise, I probably wouldn't have left there, but they weren't different. Here they're different. So,
yeah. Well, I'm glad you found a spot, and we've given Jolie a rough time tonight, but she's an integral part of all of that.
Hope Andy gives her a rough time.
And yep. So I think she's outgone now. I don't know that Andy was.
She's still there.
She's
It's
lurking.
the thought that counts.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but she has been a big part of everything that's gone on, both at the old place and now at Old Homestead. So,
Absolutely.
Yep.
If you have ghosts.
Yeah. If you have ghosts, you have everything.
That's the Hoosier spelling.
Mike, what's coming up on My Whiskey Den?
Coming up tomorrow night live, and then we're going to be an hour earlier than normal. We are going to have this up and coming young singer songwriter named Drew Crawley. Drew's going to be on there, and we are hoping that not only, well, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to play the music. What we're hoping is that YouTube is not going to flag the fact that the guy who sang and wrote the songs and has the rights to the song is choosing to play the songs live on there, and then they decide that we're not allowed to play them. So. Well, that's AI for you. But yeah, that's our upcoming show. Then we got a few of them that we're working on with Turner Wathen, Todd Leopold, and Liberty Pole.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
a great lineup. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Drew's album went live Friday. He did had a jam-packed album release show at the Monarch here in Louisville on Thursday night. Fantastic. He and I'm biased, and I'll be the first one to admit it, but he has really just grown so much as a songwriter over the last few years. And there are some of these songs that they're all very good. But, he's just done a great job with it. And really proud of him. So go to Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your music and search Drew Crawley and find this Hard to Hold album and give it a listen, because you will be glad that you did. And for Bourbon Turntable, we've got this show this week. Got an anniversary show with Iron Root that'll be coming up probably the following week. And we've got Judith Hollis Jones, who is the co-founder at Buzzard Drew. She's going to be on coming up next month. We've got a German blues rock band called Dear Robin that'll be on next month, and Lenny Eckstein's going to come back on next month as well.
Great.
So fun stuff. All right, guys, this has been fun. We could not let Alan Bishop Day pass without a proper or improper at times salute to that. And
it just won't let it die.
No, it's not. It's just not going to. So as much dirt as Joey tries to throw on it, we will not let it die. But all right. Well, on behalf of Mike and Alan and myself, thank you everybody for tuning in. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies. Till next time, cheers, love, and free bird.
Cheers.